Hello all, welcome to study 17 of the Solving Studies to Improve Chess Calculation series. This time I bring you a position from another doctor on philology. It seems like philology is the most common profession of chess composers. I don't know, but it's a challenge for you to find out what was the last chess composer that also was a philologist. And this time we're talking about J.Sehwers, a Latvian chess composer. Uh, just for curiosity, he studied the influence of the German language in Latvian, Latvian being one of the oldest European languages. Well, he also made some studies, not that many, around 100, still very interesting, very good for us. Uh, and so I hope you enjoy this one. And after the countdown, I see you with the solutions. And here we are in the solution. Not that hard, I think. I hope you have found it. And the right move is playing the good knight f6. Why? Because if we analyze the position, we see that the rook is playing against two knights and the pawns. If we allow white to promote, well, of course, white will win. So, from the black perspective, the idea is to stop the pawn. And if, for example, white allows black to sacrifice the rook for the pawn, like for example in this move, now uh, I don't know, maybe this one and sacrifice. And as you know, two knights against the king, it's a draw. So basically, on the beginning of the analysis of the study, we need to conclude that if the rook sacrifice for the pawn, it's a draw. So basically, we need to control that for not happening. And at first, it's very fast to see that the rook is threatening to play rook g4 and take the pawn. So first thing is we need to control the access of the rook to g4. So we have two options, but only one is good. Let's first see what happened with the wrong one. If we go by this side, well, the rook comes back to again go for g file where it controls the advancing of the pawn. So if the pawn advances now, there's no way to stop it, to stop the rook from taking the pawn. So this will also lead to a draw. Here, of course, we can control the rook, but the rook just take the pawn, the knight, and then take the other's knight, and there will be no way to stop the rook from reaching G file. So this is not a possibility. But let's see deeper what happens if we go to the other side, if we go to f6. Of course, if the rook takes the knight, like directly, well, the pawn will promote. There's no way I can reach the G file or control on the first black rank. So basically, probably black can do something like this, and then we are playing, I would say, harder. End game, it's also winning for white. Queen versus rook is a win. But another tip, you have my masterclass on the queen versus rook end game for you if you are not comfortable in winning this position. Here, we also have another alternative. That's the rook going to a4. The idea is to deliver a check and then control on the first rank the promotion of the white's pawn. Let's see what happens if the pawn advances and then the rook gives a check, the king attacks the rook. The only possible square, because all squares are controlled by the white pieces, so the only square available is rook d8. But now I bring the other knight through knight g6. Well, whatever the move from black, something like this. And then now I am blocking the access of the rook to control the pawn. So this is also an important defensive resource. And without the rook being able to reach the pawn, that's a loss. But let's see it a bit better. Let's see what happens if, for example, the black side tries to go with rook a7. The idea is I am attacking the pawn, so if now the king moves to the side, well, I simply take the pawn. This is not a good idea, of course. And if the pawn promotes, well, then I will get the pawn by checking and then taking the queen. So what can white do? Well, basically we are in a forcing moves area, so we simply block the access to the pawn with the bonus of delivering check. And if the king approaches, well, I can promote it without any worries, because in the end there will be no way to access the queen, so black is basically lost. This was bringing the rook to a4. So we keep the same plan. Okay, the rook tries to reach the g file. This is the only possible good move to reach the g file. And now white plays offering the sacrifice of one of its knights? Well, because if we take the knight as expected, of course, we are not able to go to to the G file again. So if we take the knight, like for example over here, well, then we have two options. We must not miss them. The right move is, of course, advancing the pawn, because now if the rook tries to control, well, it's gonna fall into a fork. But and that's the solution. But let's just first see what happens if I go on the wrong way and go to e4. Well, this is supposedly to control the G file, yes, but white has a less trick in the end. So it plays king c6, not going after the knight, because now, yes, I can advance the pawn. There's no way the rook can control the promotion square. So, but black will surprise us with king c6. Now, the idea is if I advance the pawn, the rook goes to a3. Now I am threatening checkmate. So, of course, I can't promote. Otherwise, I will not only not win, but, but even losing. So this forced the king to come back, and then after a check, well, I don't want to go here and have this situation where the rook takes the pawn, and then I have to play it in the defensive rook against knight, probably losing with some technique. So I need to go back, and then again I repeat the position, so I get a draw. So basically, uh, coming back to the beginning, so to see how this works, first we control the access to the G4 file. So white sacrifices the knight. Well, if let's see, for example, if black tries to go to G2 instead, well, simply we take uh, the rook with a fork. So that's basically not an option. And so basically the rook needs to take the knight. We advance the pawn. The only way to stop is go to the G file, but then I get this fork, and after the king moves, for example, over here, well, this is a loss. Well, not a long study, not a long solution. I hope you have enjoyed it, and thanks to another philology doctor, we have some enjoyment in having found the right moves. Okay, see you in future studies. Bye bye.